We feel so, absolutely. I mean, you know, I forget who was in the earlier panel talking about OSHA 10. I believe it was Mr. Rodriguez from BCTC talking about OSHA 10 and talking about that how something more is needed. And we couldn't agree more. OSHA 10 is baseline, but the fact of the matter is not every worker that you're seeing on a construction site is receiving that OSHA 10, the baseline training. We feel that there should be more, particularly given the fact that that the statistics bear that most accidents are gravity related. That training with regards to supported scaffold for our training courses is required as part of being on the work site. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, fall protection plans should also be part of the work site as well. Virtually, you know, there's a demarcation between larger and smaller sites. It's just not a matter of sort of characterizing. It's actually a industry term. Smaller sites are those sites that are less than 100,000 square feet or 9 stories and less. Large sites are more than 100,000 square feet and 10 stories or more. And there's a demarcation with regards to who or which projects are required to have site safety managers. It's those projects that are larger projects that are required to have a dedicated personnel that are called site safety managers to manage the safety process there. I mean, that's why you'll see in the statistics that I mentioned earlier that the likelihood of a violation not being issued actually increases as the building gets larger because of the site safety manager on board.
So from what I've heard is that in this report and what you've gathered is that you've interviewed a lot of construction managers, but have you interviewed any of the workers at these sites?
No.
And why not?
Because our focus was to try to figure out what makes the difference between the safe sites that we have found from our membership with regards to their safety records, and trying to interview them as to what common practices that could be translated to smaller sites.
But don't you think that it's a key component to understand what is going on with the workers who are the ones that are actually having these fatalities that are taking place on the job site? Wouldn't that be an important piece of part of your analysis in a report, not just talking to the managers, but also talking to the workers?
Absolutely. I think that it's a great data point to have, but I think that we started with trying to figure out exactly what makes a safer site as evidenced by some of the projects that our members build, and what are the best practices that can be translated. And that can only really be translated from talking to the construction managers.
But when you say that and you say best practices and you're not talking to the workers, you know, that to me right there is telling me something. You know, it's telling me that you're taking just one piece of this and not looking at it as a whole, and you're not looking at the perspective of what the worker has to go through, which is a key component to any report that you're going to put out. And so for me, that is a major concern, especially when we have 16 fatalities in a year that have happened on construction sites, 14 of those being non-union, the majority of them being Latino and people of color. These are the ones that are suffering. It is becoming clear to me that a lot of these non-union workers that are being hired on these jobs are used more as disposable labor, and they're not being trained properly. They're not being taught the proper procedures, and to ignore that, I think is a big flaw here in your report, and when you're gathering any type of analysis to come up with this report.
Well, I just want to say this, Assemblyman Moya, is that it was the increase of fatalities, it was the increase of accidents, it was the prevalence of construction safety and the discussion of every New Yorker that spurred on REBNY and our members to take a look at this issue very seriously and to take a look at it very in-depthly as well. And we wanted to have an analytical approach to this from a data-driven viewpoint. And that's why we did the analysis of every single accident from 2010 to 2014. I think that the safety of the worker, the well-being of the worker is certainly utmost in our minds, and particularly with our construction managers that we've interviewed. And to your point, with regards to interviewing workers, I mean, we'll take that into advisement. I think that's a great idea. We want to issue a report that is the most comprehensive, reflecting the best practices and the most sensible recommendations that can be applied to smaller sites as well. Because again, it's the smaller sites, particularly those under 9 stories or less, that's where you're seeing the most fatalities. That's where you're seeing the accidents happen. And is it, are they being administered? Are they being constructed by unscrupulous or lesser reputable contractors? Probably so.
Well, I look forward to making sure that that's a part of your report and analysis, that the interview of the workers on these sites that are that you're interviewing with the managers is going to be included in whatever report gets put out. That's something that I know that myself and I think that this committee would greatly look forward to looking at.
We'll be sure to send you a copy of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. You indicated that you interviewed managers on the various sites. Did you also look at and ask for documentation that would support or would complement their oral testimony to you?
Could you clarify that?
Sure. If you asked them if they were doing job training or not doing job training, did you look to see if they had schedules showing that they had toolbox meetings on a regular basis, that they had training on the site on a regular basis, that they had disciplinary action taken either on behalf of or against an employee for failing to follow training or follow safety rules?
No, these interviews were pretty informal. They were basically just gathering of some members in various forums, and there was no verification that you talk of.
Okay. And you looked at the DLB reports, and I think those are the ones that classified certain accidents as other. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And other involves lots of different things aside from worker inattention. Did you do any work in trying to draw your conclusions and then recommendations to determine under the roughly 30% of accidents which were classified as other on what that other was? It's
a variety, and we look. Having taken a look at those, it's a variety. So for the most part, though, in terms of how accidents are classified, and there's only 6 categories that accidents are classified. I believe it's material falling, worker falling, excavation. If you give me a moment, I can pull up the other 3. It's scaffolding, shoring, installation, mechanical construction equipment. The 6 are worker fall, material fell, other, scaffolding, shoring, installation, mechanical construction equipment, and excavation soil work. So other does capture a very large part of the universe of accidents. And mind you, the classifications are given when a violation is issued, meaning that there was a safety violation, mm-hmm. that DOB saw cause, that this accident, that there was a cause for the accident that just sort of did not just sort of happen at a freak accident essentially. But to answer your question with regards to breaking down other what was worker intention and what was, let's say, what's other failure to secure, let's say, we didn't take a look at that, but we did find a sort of large incidence of very simple stuff like, as I mentioned in my testimony, worker failing to wear protective gear, and you heard that over again through these panels this afternoon. Sometimes there's a bit of a laxness with more experienced workers that they say, well, I don't have to wear a hard hat, and I think you just heard a representative from the Mason Center talk about that.
Okay. So, but for the purposes of your report, you didn't delve any further than just the demarcation of the accident being caused by other?
Correct, because, and I'll clarify that too as well, is that on these accident reports, they're pretty much handwritten, right? And so there's no kind of code that kind of like you can sort of easily sort of, classify that as such and such or whatever it is, where these classifications of violations are very discrete in terms of their 6 classes.
Okay. And I think your testimony was over the 2010-2014 period, you evaluated 28 cases, correct?
926 accidents, including 28 fatalities.
28 fatalities.
Yeah.
Okay. And that 27% classified as other, is that 27% of the larger?
90. Yes.
Okay.
90 20. It's the
In any of those cases, did you talk to the managers on those job sites?
No.
All right. In any of those cases, so you didn't talk to the managers at all, so you didn't have an opportunity to ask a manager or someone on the job site if they requested a worker not to use a piece of safety equipment for the purpose of expediency and profit?
No.
Okay. And do you acknowledge that that sometimes happens?
Hearing from this afternoon's testimony, taking everyone's on word.
Have you reviewed any of the various cases that have been, where opinions have been issued regarding violations of the scaffold law?
No.
All right. Would it surprise you at all that on many of those cases, the testimony that's presented at court indicates that a person, a manager or a supervisor on a job site will say to ignore safety devices because they want the job to get done quicker?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, next we have, on the list, we have Nicole Bertram, Executive Vice President of the Edward Malloy Initiative for Construction Skills, and Leah Rambo, Director of Training, the Sheet Metal Workers, Local 28.
Got it.
Hi, Leah. Do you want to go first?
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for inviting Construction Skills to testify this afternoon. And I've taken out some of my testimony because I know we're running a little bit into the afternoon, late afternoon. But just quickly, my name is Nicole Bertrand. I am the Executive Vice President of the Edward J. Malloy Initiative for Construction Skills, a not-for-profit corporation which administers a pre-apprenticeship training program that leads to direct entry opportunities in unionized apprenticeship programs jointly sponsored by affiliates of the Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York. So I'm skipping some of this, but compared to the non-union sector, we've heard a lot of this today, but I think this is important because I did, in preparing my testimony, find a study that I think is very important. So compared to the non-union sector, the unionized construction industry offers a far superior training and education opportunity, wages and benefits package, retirement security, and most importantly, safe working conditions. At the end of 2015, a peer-reviewed study conducted in Ontario, Canada, found that the unionized construction industry is demonstrably safer than non-union construction. And the data suggest that factors that might explain what they're referring to as the union safety effect include a more robust, specialized apprenticeship, upgrade and safety training requirements for union members, programs and practices that more effectively identify and reduce construction work hazards, a safety net that allows union workers to report accidents without fear of repercussions, ongoing skills training programs that provide a foundation for safer skilled work throughout one's career, and a more effective role for unions in influencing government regulations designed to improve workplace safety and health. So the non-union construction industry simply does not have the ability to compete with the unionized construction industry's record of safety and training. So, and some of this has been sort of alluded to, but in New York City, there are a variety of ways to enter into an apprenticeship program, jointly sponsored by union affiliates of the BCTC. The majority of New York City residents access these apprenticeship opportunities through the general recruitment process. But in addition to the general recruitment process, individuals are able to access apprenticeship opportunities through programs that offer direct entry. So the BCTC recognizes 4 programs that have the direct entry privilege as sanctioned by the New York State Department of Labor. Construction skills, non-traditional employment for women, helmets to hard hats, which is a program for honorably discharged veterans of the United States military, and a program called Building Works, which is a pre-apprenticeship training program run out of the New York City District Council of Carpenters. So those are the 4 programs that offer the direct entry opportunity to these residents. Each year, Construction Skills recruits and trains one cycle of New York City public high school seniors for direct entry into apprenticeship. And our participants reside in all 5 boroughs of New York City, and 89% of our participants are members of a minority group, including African American, Hispanic, Asian, or other minorities. In the last 12 months, due to funding provided by the New York City Housing Recovery Office, which is administered by the New York City Department of Small Business Services, the funding is administered by the SBS, we have expanded our training to include fast-track training for adult residents of Sandy-impacted areas of the city. And that has been a very successful program for us. In large part because we have a strong relationship with all of the union affiliates of the BCTC and are able to connect workers immediately with those opportunities and aligned our training, as we do with every component, to the availability of seats in the industry. So the construction skills pre-apprenticeship training methodology makes an important distinction between training and registered apprenticeship. So we're not preparing any participant for any one trade in particular. Instead, what we're doing is preparing them for the industry and to be successful once they get there. So in addition to the technical skills, such as aptitude and physical exam preparation, woven into the construction skills curriculum are essential skills, including health and safety standards and expectations. Program components such as OSHA 10, General Worksite Safety Overview, and even our dress code policy are designed to comply with industry safety standards and to enable a student to cultivate an understanding of workplace hazards that they may encounter over the course of their career. The Construction Skills Program model has received national acclaim from the Aspen Institute, Columbia University, and most recently, the United States Department of Education selected construction skills as one of 9 post-secondary pathways for graduates of CTE, Career Technical Education, high schools around the country. And I'm proud to report that to date, we have placed 1,750 graduates of New York City Public High School and now adult residents of Sandy-impacted areas into these opportunities. 1,260 of these placements remain active in our industry, including 700 journey persons. So we're not just providing access to the opportunity, we're providing access to the opportunity we're providing graduates with the skills needed to be successful, not only to access the opportunity, but to complete it, to achieve journey level status, which I think is really important and significant. And it's a long road, and as compared to outcomes from other workforce development programs that may track 30, 60, 90 are typically the milestones of retention, we're tracking people into as many as 5.5 years to achieve the end of their apprenticeship training. So unionized apprenticeship is a long-standing pathway for workers to enter into careers that allow them to obtain a middle-class lifestyle. Historically excluded groups, particularly minorities and women, have successfully entered into unionized apprenticeship programs via the pathway established by pre-apprenticeship training and direct entry models. We urge the committees to consider aligning legislation and public policy with health and safety standards set by the unionized construction industry. You all have the right to work with dignity and to return home safely to our families. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members, assembly members. Thank you for hearing us today. My name is Leah Rambo. I'm the Director of Training for the Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, Local Union 28. I'm also a member of the BCTC Health and Safety Committee. You've heard quite a bit of testimony today regarding unions and apprenticeship programs, and I'm going to speak to you, I guess, from my position as a Director of Training. I am a sheet metal worker by trade for 28 years, but our goal with our apprentices is really to make sure that everyone is a safety champion. So we have 476 apprentices, and we bring in about 140 a year. We do not allow anyone's boots to touch a job site unless they have had the very minimum of OSHA training, scaffold training, training in fall protection. We realize, of course, that OSHA is something you can do online, but we value the benefit of doing it in-house at a facility, because in that environment, you can show someone who's very new to the industry, physically show them, okay, this is how you go up the ladder, this is how you come down the ladder. In terms of your equipment, how to put it on properly. Our apprenticeship program has 476 apprentices. 72% of them are minorities, and I classify minorities as Black and Latino workers, and we have 12% women. So when it comes to PPE or personal protective equipment, standardized equipment may not fit a woman the same as it would fit a man. So we make sure that we have equipment that is available for our female apprentices and to show them the way to properly attach equipment that would be safe for them and fit their body in a comfortable way. So that's one of the values that we feel of having an apprenticeship program and teaching people safety. On the job site, an employee may be inclined not to do something safe because they're afraid for their job. Well, there's added protection with apprenticeship programs and even with unions. So, for instance, if there is an apprentice that's on the job and they're being told to do something unsafe, they'll immediately will contact us. The apprenticeship schools, the unions, will pull workers from a job site rather than have them work in an unsafe situation. Or there might be one piece of equipment that they feel that they need that the employer didn't readily provide. Our advice is automatically, you get the equipment no matter what. Send us the bill, we'll take care of it. And we will on their behalf make sure that that employee has the voice that they need to be safe on the job. In terms of what would be helpful with this legislature, one thing is to do what you've continued to do and to stand up for the worker safety rights. And to stand firm in your resolve, not to let them back down on any of the current laws that are there. The other thing that's very important is enforcement. We've heard how many OSHA inspectors there are to job sites. So wherever possible, more funding to various agencies and inspectors so that they can really put them on the job to watch. Because there tend to be quite a big focus on very large jobs, high-profile jobs, but many of the fatalities and injuries are happening on some of these smaller jobs. And we really would like to see that same type of attention and focus because, whether you're union or non-union or a big job or small job, the important thing is the worker being able to come home to their family in a same healthy state that they left. And another thing is because apprenticeship programs have been known to focus so much on safety, it is important that apprenticeship language be put into PLA agreements. So wherever, and I feel, of course, everywhere possible, that language should be put in because that's an automatic safety for the worker. We are monitored quite stringently by the Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship. They come, they speak to our apprentices, they check their cards, they take them in a private area and really interview them. So the more job sites that require apprenticeship programs, when that's whether it's non-union or union, if it's apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship language, then they're going to have to uphold the standard by the Department of Labor.
thank you so much for your testimony. Questions?
I'll defer to Harry on this one, and then I'll come back on.
Okay. Leah, I want to clarify that you testified that in your training you include OSHA training, fall protection training, and scaffold training, correct?
Yes, as well as GSA,
Okay. GSA is?
global harmonization, the communication, hazmat communication. And that's, for us, that's the bare minimum before they can even go to the job site. We also provide ongoing training for our journey workers once they're on the site, and refresher training.
All right. And that training, who determined that training? Was that something that the union worked out through its labor management agreement with the management association?
Well, our contract agreement says that that type of training is the employer's responsibility. And oftentimes the employer will do the training also. But as a union, we take it very personal as our responsibility. So even though it is in our contract language, we don't wait for anyone else to train our members on how to be safe.
Okay. So it's interesting to me, and this is for my purposes more than yours, but the RAPNE recommendation, the first recommendation, is to require OSHA 10 construction training, scaffold training, and fall protection training for all workers. And you at Sheet Metal Workers, you're doing that. So I think that says a lot about the issue of union sites and union work and union training versus non-union sites. How long have you been doing this? 28 years, did you say?
28 years, yeah.
Wow.
I started when I was 2.
I was gonna say that, but, and you're the director of training. So just for the purposes of us, and so that we have it on the record, what does the director of training do?
Well, for my local, because it does vary from local to local, but in my local, my main responsibility is to be able to determine what the industry's needs are, and to develop training that is going to be applicable for our industry. So the majority of my time is spent on apprenticeship training. We have a 5-year apprenticeship program, and then the rest of it is what we call upgrade training for our journey workers. Much of it is safety, but it also includes if they want to get additional skills or move on to various aspects of our trade, because we have a very diverse trade.
And how does that work with the continuing training for journey persons? Do they ask for that, or if there's a change in the operations or the technology or something? I mean, what triggers the additional training?
So it triggers it from several areas. Apprenticeship programs. I have a joint apprenticeship program, so it's comprised of labor and management. So it's a combination. It's between the union leaders and management, the employers, to look at what's the industry needs. We also have joint labor management funds that look out for forecasts. Most local unions, we belong to an international union. So the SMART Air Rail, Sheet Metal's Air Rail and Transportation Workers, our international union, looks at industry across the entire United States and Canada, and funnels down to the local unions, to the directors of trainings and instructors, what we should be out on a lookout. And then the other part comes from our members themselves. Our members also call in and say, hey, you know what, I would like a class on this. I didn't get this job because I didn't have this training. When is the next class? So it's a combination how we come up with our training schedule for our journey person training.
Good. Thank you, Leah. Nicole, I just have one line of questioning, and this is really just to educate me in a better way. The direct entry, you said that there were 4 categories of people who are afforded direct entry. What are those 4 categories again?
So there's 4 programs that offer direct entry, that enjoy the direct entry privilege. And so we have Construction Skills, which serves New York City public high school seniors. Okay. And now, due to funding provided by the Sandy Build It Back efforts, adult residents of Sandy impacted areas. And then we have non-traditional employment for women, helmets to hard hats.
That's
for vets. And then Building Works. I'm not as familiar with that program. I actually worked at New, and now I work at Construction Skills, and Helmets is run out of the same office as me. I don't have as much familiarity with Building Works, but I do know that it's training for adults.
Okay. And what's the benefit of direct entry?
The benefit of direct entry, so what direct entry very simply means is that candidates are exempt from general recruitment, which is typically a lottery. So the benefit of direct entry is that you have to meet any and all entrance requirements, but you don't have to wait for a general recruitment to happen, which happens less frequently than a new class of apprentices is brought in.
Okay. Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Okay, I'm sorry. Francisco Moya.
So I just want to highlight, and Leah, I think then we are the same age then, because we're
Started
both
at 2
very,
also.
very youthful and young. But this is one of the things I wanted to highlight, where this report says that more than 1,260 of the placements remain actively employed in unionized construction industry, including nearly 700 journey persons. Now, that's a really high rate to have people as journey people in this apprenticeship. And I just wanted to applaud that, because I think that is really demonstrating to all of us that the apprenticeships works. And it's also highlighting the fact that, look at the statistics again of when people are questioning whether or not there is a high number of apprenticeship programs that include minorities. Right now we have here, it says 65% of these residents are minorities. And I just want to say that that's something that we should be highlighting from this report and from this hearing. It's very important for us to take back that this is exactly what is being done in the industry to promote not just the apprenticeship, but to promote within the minority communities here in New York City. So thank you.
We also just want to note, I remember you, Ms. Bertram, from our apprenticeship hearing that we had, and you also
I remember you guys too.
gave this excellent testimony, so thank you again.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Thank you so
you.
much. Before we close out this hearing, I really want to applaud my two colleagues that I have here with me on this dais. Assemblyman Francisco Moya, who is our chair of Assembly Subcommittee on Workplace Safety. You have been doing outstanding work in this particular area, and I just wanted to highlight for the record, I know that you have legislation dealing with the industry, with the insurance companies and their rising costs. So I think that that's also legislation that I hope that everyone here in this audience knows about and knows that we are prioritizing and making sure that that legislation moves forward. And I also just want to note, again, traveling from Rochester, my colleague, Assemblyman Bronson, who is our chair for the Assembly Commission on Skills Development and Career Education. Again, with your labor background, you've been doing astute work in this particular area, so I thank you, both of my colleagues, for all the work that you're doing for our Labor Committee, and I want to thank all the participants here that have participated and given great testimony, and I look forward to us moving forward on this very important issue. Thank you. You want to say anything closing?
Just thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for having this hearing for us to shed some light on this important issue.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.